Thursday is Thanksgiving. It's a holiday that presidents have sometimes used as an opportunity to visit with and thank American troops fighting overseas.
Let's see if we got anybody more senior here who can read the president's Thanksgiving speech. Is there anybody back there who's more senior than us?
That was President George W. Bush making a surprise Thanksgiving Day visit to Iraq in 2003. President Bill Clinton, he traveled to Kosovo for a pre-Thanksgiving Day dinner in 1999. President George H.W. Bush, he went to have Thanksgiving dinner with troops in Saudi Arabia. That was in 1990. Now, again, these visits are often a surprise, so it's not out of the ordinary that the White House has not publicly announced whether President Donald Trump will make one of those unexpected visits to thank U.S. troops in a war zone. However, some veterans and former defense officials are frankly disappointed that President Trump has not yet visited American service members in a combat zone, not just on a holiday, but at all. Consider this. He's been in office 666 days now. Let's go back to President Obama's administration. President Obama first visited Camp Victory in Baghdad 77 days into his administration, Afghanistan on day 432. And President George W. Bush, he visited Iraq 252 days after the start of the war. He didn't go to Afghanistan until 2006. Now, security is understandably a consideration when planning trips like these. But Vice President Mike Pence, he made a surprise visit to troops in Afghanistan just before Christmas last year. Jared Kushner, he went to Iraq in 2017. Now, when President Trump was asked by the Associated Press just a few weeks ago why he had not visited troops in a combat zone, the president reportedly said this, quote, "Well, I will do that at some point, but I don't think it's overly necessary. I've been very busy with everything that's taking place here." Now, the president has visited troops at Camp Humphreys in South Korea and elsewhere last year, but over the last nearly 2 years, President Trump did not visit U.S. combat troops even when he was nearby. Let's look at his first official trip. It was to Saudi Arabia. There were more than 5,000 active duty U.S. troops in Iraq, 10,000 in Afghanistan, thousands more in Qatar, at the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East. President Trump didn't visit any of them. The president then went on to Israel. There were 1,700 or so U.S. troops next door in Jordan, many of them fighting in Syria. He didn't visit them either. Listen, every president is busy. There's always work to do at the White House. But former Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel says these visits are necessary.
I think it's bigger than just a misstep. I think it's a failure of an obligation, of a basic obligation of a commander-in-chief. He's commander-in-chief of our forces, and not to go to a war zone where we have men and women dying, that's just wrong.
Maybe the president will surprise troops overseas this week by thanking them in person. But if this Thanksgiving is like the last one, he'll thank the troops, but he'll do it from Mar-a-Lago.
We're being talked about again as an armed forces. We're really winning. We know how to win, but we have to let you win. They weren't letting you win before. They were letting you play even. We're letting you win.